right, so I wanted to go over a couple of different things that I would like to run over with you on the table, because seeing that shaking is very uncommon for our plasma tables. And as a matter of fact, I can't think of a single time where I've seen that level of shaking, and I want to be able to address this in every manners of series of tests. So obviously, with the control box on, we always run the first. I'm just going to start at the bottom. Start off with our first basic test, which is I can actually hold the motor, and I'm going to try to physically move the motor and notice that the motor isn't shaking or jittering. Motor isn't shaking or jittering, and same thing over there. If I were to try to move this right now, it's not going to shake or move. So that's the first test that I like to run if I have any clarity or any shaking issues as it comes down to what you're trying to describe. Other thing is we're also going to be sending you a revised version of this piece here, so that we don't have this weird angle. While technically this is capable of bending at this radius, it isn't exactly what's going to be running or running best. So what we're going to do is switch that out to a different type of bracket there. That being said, let's talk about other things. One is we want to make sure that, now forgive the mess here, but this power supply here should also be set up and away from, should not be on top of the computer. We have the computer and that's set apart. We do want to make sure that that is the case, because it will create some interference by having one sitting directly on top of the other. It's a possibility that interference can occur. So I would like to see if you separate that, because that could potentially cause the shaking. Now, high frequency is also something that one of our team brought up as a potential issue. Now, in our case, we have our power supply sitting back over here. We want to make sure that our power supply for our plasma is not next to or not directly in contact with our power supply for here. If your building has any grounding issues for any reason, it can create some issues. Not that that is something we run into a lot, but every once in a blue moon, 1 out of every 200 orders or so, we'll see some high frequency issues related to building power. So just keep that in mind if necessary. Again, seeing it step the way it is not a typical response, and we want to make sure that that's fixed up. But that being said, we'll also potentially run another switch. If worst comes to worst, we're actually going to switch out the control box to make sure that your control system is working properly, and I guess appropriately would be the best way to phrase that. So worst comes to worst, we're going to go ahead and do that fundamental switch as soon as possible. Outside of that, we've discussed power there. We've discussed plasma. We don't want our plasma sitting right next to our control box. We keep it at approximate distances. Yes, they could be close together, but we again don't want to cause any outside interference on the control systems. And lastly, we also want to make sure the computer isn't connected to the internet, because any interference from the internet, any problem that arises in Windows because of a virus or anything of that nature can cause our system to freak out. And again, that's just 1 in a million, but we do want to make sure that that isn't the case, where we try to remove as many variables for failure for systems as physically possible, and that's just another way we do it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That's about what I have right now. So tests that we're going to run. We're going to check that gantry. We're going to pull it. We're also going to see about our power supply in the back, making sure our power isn't set up in such a way that we could get extra interference. We also want to make sure that we're getting enough power drawn to the system. We have 4 drivers that have a potential pull of 1.9 amps each. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 of those drivers pulling at a max of 1.9. Most of the time they're sitting far below that, but just something to consider that that's what they're drawing. And then of course we have the computer away from the control box. We do want to make sure that that's the case. Yes, they're next to each other, but we do want to make sure that there is some separation, not one on top of the other. Again, we'd run into step-related potential issues if that is the case. 1, 2, 3, and that is where we're going to go from here. So let's try those out, and we'll get you up and running. And again, if we need to, we're going to go ahead and just switch out that control box and make to remove if it is some sort of issue with that. But I want to make sure that when we do make a big decision like that, that it is the right decision and we get you cutting as soon as possible.